All right, Hillary Clinton fans, I don't know if you've seen this, but on June 5th of 2016, Hillary Clinton was asked about gun rights. Now, this has a lot to do with the freedom of our country. However, she went a little bit further than just answering gun rights. Have a look.
Let's talk about the Second Amendment. As you know, Donald Trump has also been out on the stump talking about the Second Amendment, saying you want to abolish the Second Amendment. I know you reject that, but I want to ask you a specific question. Do you believe that an individual's right to bear arms is a constitutional right, that it's not linked to service in a militia?
Now, just before she gets into answering this question, says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, the people refers to individual people. So anything less than a yes, and she's deceiving you.
I think that for most of our history, there was a nuanced reading of the Second Amendment until the decision by the late Justice Scalia. And there was no argument until then that localities and states and the federal government had a right, as we do with every amendment, to impose reasonable regulations. So I believe.
Now, you tell me where in the Second Amendment it says that we're allowed to impose reasonable regulations upon the Second Amendment. It says shall not be infringed. Does not say anything about states and local municipalities being able to take away a citizen's right to own or bear a firearm.
I believe we can have common sense gun safety measures consistent with the Second Amendment.
Her answer is not consistent with the Second Amendment, and all of these stupid damn laws that take guns out of people's hands, law-abiding citizens, mind you, are not consistent with anything in the Constitution. She's lying to you.
In fact, what I have proposed is supported by 90% of the American people and more than 75% of responsible gun owners.
This, too, is a lie. She is making up numbers, and I don't know if it's her just putting percentages behind numbers of people, but you can't do that, and those are cooked.
So that is exactly what I think is constitutionally permissible. And once again, you have Donald Trump just making outright fabrications, accusing me of something that is absolutely untrue. But I'm going to continue to speak out for comprehensive background checks, closing the gun show loophole, closing the online loophole, closing the so-called Charleston loophole, reversing the bill that Senator Sanders voted for and I voted against, giving immunity from liability to gun makers and sellers. I think all of that can and should be done, and it is, in my view, consistent with the Constitution.
Now, in order for that to be consistent with the Constitution, the founders would have had to write that into the Constitution. You show me where it says that there's comprehensive background checks and that we can go and sue people that make a product because of the way that their purchasers use it.
The Heller decision also does say there can be some restrictions, but that's not what I asked. I said, do you believe that their conclusion that an individual's right to bear arms is a constitutional right?
If it is a constitutional right.
She's not even sure if it's a constitutional right for an individual to keep and bear arms. But here's where it gets really, really deep for Hillary Clinton.
Right, then it, like every other constitutional right, is subject to reasonable regulations.
She just said that every right is subject to reasonable regulations. Really? So that means that you can regulate the First Amendment out of existence, the Second Amendment out of existence, and all of the rest of the amendments, not to mention the actual Constitution itself. The rights that we have are not subject to regulating out of existence or to be regulated to mold them to some idea that only you have, Hillary Clinton.
And what people have done with that decision is to take it as far as they possibly can and reject what has been our history from the very beginning of the Republic, where some of the earliest laws that were passed were about firearms.
Some of the earliest laws that were passed were about firearms. A lot of them had to do with you have to have a firearm. You have to have a firearm if you're over the age of 18. You have to have a firearm if you attend a church service. You have to leave your house armed. It didn't have anything to do with taking guns away from normal Americans.
So I think it's important to recognize that reasonable people
Reasonable people should be allowed to walk around with a gun anywhere that they want to defend against the unreasonable people that are murdering us.
can say, as I do, responsible gun owners have a right. I have no objection to that. But the rest of the American public has a right to require certain kinds.
See, now she's telling you that we have a right. We have a right to keep and bear arms as long as it doesn't infringe on anybody else's supposed right to tell us that we have to go through background checks and that we're liable to be sued if anything happens.
Of regulatory responsible actions to protect everyone else.
How far would you go on that?
So now we have to protect everyone else. This is their right. They can take our guns away in order to protect everyone else. How's that working in Chicago, you bitch?
Back in 1993, I don't want to show it right here, you actually came out in support of a gun tax. Let's listen.
How do you react to a 25% sales tax on handguns and on automatic weapons?
I'm all for that. I just don't know what else we're going to do to try to figure out how to get some handle on this violence. We will look.
Here's an idea. How about you arm the responsible citizens that you presently want to disarm? And apparently all the way back in 1993, you wanted to disarm those same American citizens. Let's put all the guns in the hands of the state and put all the guns in the hands of the criminals who aren't going to follow your stupid-ass laws anyway. I have a right to self-defense, Hillary Clinton, just like you do. And you exercise it by hiring battalions of Secret Service agents and bodyguards. Now, if I had all of your money, I would do the same thing and I wouldn't need to be armed. But that's not the way that the world works. So I will keep my gun on me and be responsible for my self-protection, just like you are.
At your proposal and be happy to talk with you about it. I'm speaking personally, but I feel very strongly about that.
Still believe that?
What I was saying back then was that we have a lot of public health costs that taxpayers end up paying for through Medicaid, Medicare.
Here she goes through her laundry list of programs, social programs, welfare programs, that I can't figure out why we have because that's not in the Constitution either. It's been read in there by people like her, but it's not in there. Just like she's going to blame gun owners for somehow exacerbating the cost of these said social programs.
Through uncompensated care, because that was in the context of the push for health care reform, and that we needed some way to try to defray those costs. And I'm not going to commit to any specific proposal. I was speaking personally then. I would have to, consider any proposal in light of how it interacted with all the others that we want to continue to advocate for, particularly, as I said, comprehensive background checks. But that was in the context of health care. When you have mass shootings, you not only have the terrible deaths, you have people who are injured. I was just in San Bernardino yesterday.
Yeah, this bitch belongs in San Bernardino. Right after she got done running Fast and Furious and gave the same people that shot it up all of their weapons. Way to go, Hillary Clinton. You deserve some kind of medal for fucking retardism.
And I met some of the survivors. One woman who was shot twice, who's had a series of surgeries. Two other women who were cowering in abject terror by the terrorists' unbelievable assault on their co-workers.
The same ones that you've supported. The same ones that you have gone and given weapons to. Made sure that they had aid. Made sure that they were funded. Now, it's pretty hypocritical that you're sitting here and complaining about the monster that you've created hurting American citizens, and you're asking to be our president? Not a chance.
What they talk to me about is where do they get the financial support to deal with both the physical and the emotional trauma?
I don't know. While you were at the State Department, did you happen to find that couple of $1 trillion laying around? Pay for it out of that.
You know, is it workman's comp support, which is one of the arguments? Is it private insurance? Is it because they work for the county, something the county should pay for? There are real costs.
How about you pay them from the Clinton Foundation? That seems like a good idea, and you'd finally be giving back to the communities that you have tried to ruin.
That people incur because of the terrible gun violence epidemic. And
it's a gun violence epidemic. No, it's not a gun violence epidemic. It's you disarming people, making sure that terrorists can come into our country unvetted. You are the problem, Hillary Clinton, and if anybody should be held to account for any of these acts, should be you. And we don't need you telling us how to run our lives and what our Constitution says. It's 4 pages long. We can all read it for ourselves.
We have to deal with it, and I'm going to be looking for ways to deal with it. I'm not committed to anything other than what I've said in this campaign, but I do want people to ask themselves, can't we do better than have 33,000 people killed every year by guns and men?
Yeah, we can do better. We can start arming normal citizens against the criminals that are taking all these lives.
Many thousands more injured, and I think we can.
Finally, Madam Secretary.
That's the end of this video for the day. So, I hope all of you Hillary Clinton fans go and take a minute to really understand what she said. Not only is she making up lies and distorting the entire narrative about what happens in real life with the Second Amendment, she's telling you that she will regulate every single amendment and every single right, whether you hold them dear or not. She's going to take them all away from all of us, from me, from you, and from everybody you know. So you better wake the fuck up.